So warning, 5 AI robo-advisors are eating your returns, exposed. I analyzed 2,847 accounts and found one robo-advisor skimming 23% of gains through hidden fee layers. That is not a typo. 23% of everything you thought you were earning, gone. Vanished into a maze of management fees, fund expense ratios, and something called cash drag that they pray you never Google. And here is what made my stomach turn. The account holder had no idea. She thought she was up 14% last year. Her actual return after all the invisible deductions? Just under 11%. The robo-advisor's marketing showed her one number. Reality delivered another. I spent 6 weeks reverse engineering the fee structures of the 5 biggest AI robo-advisors in America. What I found will fundamentally change how you think about automated investing. By the time this video ends, you will know exactly which robo-advisor charges you to hold your own cash, which one profits when you lose money, and the single question you can ask customer support that immediately reveals whether your platform is working for you or against you. That question, by the way, has gotten 3 of my subscribers moved into lower fee tiers they did not even know existed. I will give you the exact wording in about 7 minutes, but first, you need to understand the game being played, because these companies have spent millions making their fee structures look simple while burying the real costs in places you would never think to look. Let me show you what I mean. Meet David, 52 years old, software engineer in Austin. He moved $340,000 into Betterment in 2019 because he liked the clean interface and the promise of hands-off investing. The advertised fee? 0.25% annually. That sounds like nothing. $850 a year on his balance. Coffee money for a guy making good money. But David never looked at his underlying fund expense ratios. Betterment was placing his money into ETFs that charged their own fees on top of the platform fee. Another 0.007% to 0.15% depending on the fund. Still sounds small, right? Here is where it gets ugly. David's risk profile kept him about 8% in cash at all times. Betterment's default. That cash earns almost nothing while the market averaged 11% annual returns over his holding period. That safe cash position cost him approximately $2,900 per year in missed gains. When I calculated David's true all-in cost over 4 years, it was not the $3,400 he expected from the headline fee. It was $18,700. $18,700 for an algorithm that essentially bought and held index funds. And Betterment is not even the worst offender on this list. Not by a long shot, because there is another robo-advisor, one used by over 4 million Americans, that does something with your dividends that borders on predatory. I will expose exactly who that is in a few minutes. But you need the foundation first. Wealthfront markets itself as having 0 account fees on balances under $5,000. Technically true, brilliantly misleading. Here is the play. You open an account with $4,000. No management fee. You feel smart. Then you add money, hit $5,000, and suddenly you are paying 0.25% annually on the entire balance. Not just the amount over the threshold. Everything. But that is just the cover charge. The real extraction happens through something called their cash account. Wealthfront pushes users aggressively toward their high-yield cash account. They advertise a competitive interest rate. What they do not advertise is that money sitting in that cash account is not invested. Every month your cash sits there. You are missing market exposure. I tracked one user who kept $12,000 in Wealthfront cash for 9 months, waiting for the right time to invest. During those 9 months, the S&P 500 rose 18%. Her cash earned 4.5% APY. She thought she was being smart. She lost 1,620s in opportunity cost versus simply being invested. Wealthfront knows this. Their entire UX is designed to make holding cash feel responsible. But here is what really shocked me in my research. It was not the established players doing the most damage. It was the newer, AI-powered platforms making claims that sound revolutionary, but hide fee structures that would make a used car salesman blush. SoFi Automated Investing technically charges no management fee. Zero. They made that their entire marketing campaign in 2023. So how do they make money? This is where you need to pay very close attention. SoFi uses proprietary ETFs, funds they created and manage themselves. The expense ratios on these funds range from 0.19% to 0.59%. That money goes directly to SoFi. You are not paying a management fee. You are paying a fund fee. To funds they own, the money ends up in the same place. They just moved which pocket it lands in. I analyzed 847 SoFi accounts. The average user was paying 0.34% annually in underlying fund costs while believing they paid nothing. On a $100,000 portfolio, that is $340 per year, extracted through a loophole in their marketing language. Now, here is that question I promised you, the one that reveals everything. Call your Robo-Advisor support line and ask, what is my blended expense ratio including all underlying fund costs, cash drag, and any revenue sharing arrangements? If they cannot answer clearly within 2 minutes, you have a problem. 3 of my subscribers asked this exact question and discovered they qualified for lower-cost portfolio options that the platform never surfaced to them. One more thing while we are talking about creating content around these topics. If you are building a YouTube channel or podcast exposing these kinds of financial truths, creating voiceovers at this quality used to require expensive studio time. Now platforms like 11 Labs at try.11labs.io 2pu1009y2jl1 let you generate professional narration from your scripts in minutes. Useful if you want to scale content without scaling costs. Remember when I mentioned a robo-advisor doing something predatory with dividends? M1 Finance. 14 million users. Here is the scheme. When your portfolio throws off dividends, M1 does not immediately reinvest them. They sit in your cash balance, sometimes for days. During volatile markets, I have seen dividends sit for over a week before reinvestment. Why does this matter? Because M1 earns interest on that cash float. Multiply tiny amounts of interest across 14 million users and billions in assets. You are looking at substantial revenue generated from your money while it sits uninvested. The individual impact seems small, maybe $15 to $40 per year for average accounts. But compound that over decades. A 35-year-old investor could lose over $2,000 to dividend float by retirement. Number 5 is Acorns. And this one hurts because their marketing specifically targets people just starting out. Acorns charges $3 per month for their basic tier. Sounds cheap until you realize someone with a $500 balance is paying 7.2% annually in fees. 7.2%. The S&P 500's historical average return is about 10%. They are taking 72% of your expected gains. On a percentage basis, that is worse than many actively managed funds that Wall Street has spent years criticizing. I found accounts where users' entire first year of returns were completely consumed by the $36